One more special guest. Another way that we'll grant wishes is if we hear or see something. I read an article in the newspaper months ago about a man who lived in Englewood who was a Pearl Harbor survivor. His name was John Seelie, 94 years old. He was on duty on December 7th, 1941 at Wheeler Army Airfield Base. He actually exchanged fire with Japanese aircraft that morning. And he went back to Pearl Harbor for the 75th anniversary of that this past December. He was talking to a friend, Mike Cahill, and he said, you know, he's 94 years old. He said, is there anything you want to do? And he said, you know, I really would like to visit New York City and pay my respects at Ground Zero. And to date, no Pearl Harbor survivor had done that on record. And so I had reached out to Mike and said, you know, I'd like to talk to you. Our board would like to talk to you. This is what we do. We grant wishes. And so with your help and the funds that we raised at this event last year, we were able to do that just within a few weeks. This trip happened. Mr. Seelie, Corporal Seelie, was to be with us. He's a little under the weather. So I'd like to introduce Mike Cahill, who has kind of adopted him as his caretaker. And he'd like to say a few words.
My name is Mike Cahill. I adopted John Seelie about 4.5 years ago. And when he returned from the 75th Remembrance of Pearl Harbor, I just looked at him and I said, John, what else do you want? I mean, he was 94 years and 3 months old. And he said, you know, I'd like to visit the 9/11 Memorial. And when I called the memorial and told them that I was going to bring a Pearl Harbor survivor there, they instantly transferred me up to the secretary for Alice Greenwald, where I was made aware that there had never been a Pearl Harbor survivor at the 9/11 Memorial that they know. So they started polling people and going back in time, and the answer was always no. We've never seen one. We've never seen one. We've never heard of one. So I reached out with Maverick and I said, you know, let's make this a special trip. And I was working with historian Diane Perzada. Her absolute wonderful work for the last 16 years, unfunded, has been to protect and preserve the Pacific Theater veterans and their memory and their work. And John was stationed at Hangar 1 on the morning of December 7th, 1941. When he saw the planes bank and saw the Zeros, he stood out in front. He was one of the first guys shot at for America in World War II. And he said he unloaded everything he had, everything he had in his rifle, and he kept his .45 on him because he didn't know what was going to happen. And only after that did he duck for cover. Wishes for Heroes made John's historic trip come true. We took off May 23rd. We got to the Marriott World Trade Center, and all of our bags were there except for John's and his medicine. So we were, uh-oh. But Diane, they gave him a suite, and Diane stayed with him. I used the police and found his bag and had his bag flown in from LaGuardia. $90. But, you know, we got his bag at about 11:30, and Diane woke him up and said his bag was there. The very next day, he had something that he was supposed to do, but the fire alarms went off all night. So I canceled because of health reasons. I was just concerned he was going to be too tired. So he decides that he's going to do some recon and go down to the fountains. And all I can tell you is that John's trip to New York didn't affect hundreds. It affected tens of thousands. Some of the board members here were present when John actually visited the memorial, and we had 6 minutes to make a change of venue because it was pouring rain outside. And he had everyone from the New York City Pipes and Drums to the multinational or the multi-service color guard. They were all present there to greet him. John also came to New York with a 48-star U.S. flag that was donated to me, that was made in New York City and hung in a hardware store on 9th Avenue. And 3 board members here witnessed at the end of the tour, John actually took that flag off his neck and put it around a 9/11 firefighter that was pulled from the wreckage and was still alive. And he gave him that flag. There was another real touching moment on a day that John was off, and he got called by Haiti Hayden, and she said, "John, there's 55,000 people on the plaza, and the United States Marine Corps Marching Band is going to play. Could you be there?" And he said, "Sure." And when they went to go play the national anthem, he looked at both of the women, Diane on one side and Heidi on the other side, and he said, "Get me to my feet." He says, "I didn't fight for this flag to sit or take a knee." And there's a picture of him standing in his wheelchair, out there. One other very touching moment involved youth. And there was an incredible artist that created all the artwork for John's 75th Remembrance shirt that's hanging out there. And the last time John wore it was at the 9/11 memorial. That shirt is going to Hawaii to be in their museum right after this. And the young lady that created all the artwork is Emmy Kopke, and she's with us right now. Keep John in your prayers. He's non-related. He's in the hospital right now. Age is catching up with him. He's almost 95, and we'll know how he's going to be probably next Tuesday or Wednesday. But it was an absolutely historic trip. It literally, the people of New York, he went there to pay his respects and let New York City know he cares. And boy, I'll tell you, New York really opened their arms and hugged the guy. It was a historic in that. John also, we flew in a Hawaiian lei made of fresh orchids and a red and blue bow that hung over his heart when he had it on. And he took that lei off of his head and he placed it on the memorial. And there's a picture of that out there too. So. But John also had one more wish, and
so I was honored to have an opportunity to attend this trip with fellow board member Gary Kortzendorf and one of our good friends, Shannon Glasgow from USA Fence. If you two could come up for just a moment. Yes, we actually we paid our own way to make sure that we were there to represent our organization, but also to show support for John. We all attended a luncheon and were able to get to know him a little bit before the trip. And I said, these stories could go on and on forever, but he is just an amazing man, and it definitely changed my life. I will tell you, it changed also, hopefully, the lives of my children. One of the biggest messages that John shared with me was his wish to impact children and young people and tell them not only the sheer reality of war, but his hope that, again, we're not living in that moment from now on. He really thinks, again, fighting for our freedom was that important. With that, while we were there in New York City, the morning of the ceremony, they flew a flag over the 9/11 memorial. And John had a wish, and we'd like to. You want to talk about it?
So they delivered the flag that had been flown over the 9/11 memorial to John while he was there, and it was his wish to have it delivered to Maverick to say thank you for making this trip possible. And so this is his flag.
This is Emmy. She's the person who designed the shirt and also did the painting. There's a certificate from the 9/11 memorial. This is the picture in front of the acknowledgement of the Pentagon on the 9/11 memorial. And again, that flag flew over the day of the ceremony.
I'm very touched by this, but I would say, and I want you to thank John personally for me, but I think the person that deserves this is my mother. Mom, would you come here? This doesn't happen without her idea. You want to say anything? You're never at a loss for words. Make it short.
I am at a loss for words right now. I have to keep it clean. You have no idea what all of you people mean to me and my family, and especially to my husband, who I'm sure is here with us tonight. My son doing all this work and all the great friends that he has around him to help veterans that nobody could help him. So my son is trying to make up for that, and I can't thank all of you enough for everything you do to help these veterans who really need your help. God bless you all. Thank you.